here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Crypto. This is actually episode 17. I went back and counted how many live streams we've done once we started doing the Let's Talk Crypto, and this is actually the 17th one. Can you believe it? Today I have here my co-host with me, the Bitcoin Queen. How you doing, Queen?
Hey man, it's all good. It's raining here in Miami, as you can probably also see outside your window.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Life is good. Otherwise than that, I mean, a lot of stuff is happening.
Yeah, definitely. There's definitely a lot going on in the not only in the crypto world, but just in the overall markets with so much going on. So today we're gonna be jumping into a lot of that. We're gonna be talking about, of course, what's going on in crypto, where the prices are at for Bitcoin, Ethereum, and some of the altcoins. We're gonna go over the economic calendar for the week. So we're gonna go over what happened last week. Last week we got the CPI data, we got the rate decision, and then we're gonna of course go over some news updates with one of the big events that happened last week, which pumped up Bitcoin's price a bit back, from that drop that we saw last week. So yeah, let's jump right into this. And of course, at the end of this, just like we do at the end of every live stream, we're gonna do a Q&A. So at the end of this, make sure if you have any questions about anything that's covered in today's video, or any questions in general, you can drop it in the comments, and we'll be more than happy to answer those for you guys. So let's go ahead and dive right into exactly what is going on in the world of crypto right now. As you guys can see, Bitcoin's current price is sitting at $26,550 right now. It is up almost 1% on the day. Remember, today is a holiday in the United States. It is Juneteenth. And so the markets are closed, okay? So the stock market's closed, all traditional markets are closed. So there's not going to be a lot of volume like you would usually see on a Monday. So that's something to keep in mind for today throughout this stream. So markets will be reopening tomorrow. So tomorrow it'll go back to the normal markets. But as of right now, that's why there's not too much going on in the markets today. Other than that, we can see that last week, if we look here at the last week in the market for Bitcoin, although last week was pretty much one of the worst weeks we've had in a while, right? It actually we actually ended in the green. So we did set new lows, but we still ended in the green. You can see here that we ended up the week up for 1.5%. Okay, that comes following a 3.5% decline and a 4.5% decline the last 2 weeks. So, we might be getting a change of pace here. One thing to note that we still are under that 200-week moving average there. We'll jump into that a little bit more when we do the analysis here on Bitcoin. Let's take a look here at the rest of the market. What is going on and how things are doing. So as you can see, of course, Bitcoin is up today. Ethereum is also up today. Wait, is it up today? No, in the last 24 hours, it's actually down almost 1%. In the last 7 days, it's pretty much flat. Okay, you can see the last 7 days, Bitcoin is actually up 3%, 3.2%. And if you kind of look across, and if you guys hear any thundering or lightning, there's basically a hurricane out here right now. So I apologize in
Pretty
advance
much.
if you hear any craziness. Of course, it waited for the live stream to begin for this crazy storm to start. But we'll get through it. We'll get through it. As long as we don't lose electricity, we should be fine. Yeah, as you look across the market, for most of the market, we're seeing a lot of things are flat or might be green. Especially in the last hour, we've seen a bounce here, so you can see that across the markets. If we look at the crypto bubbles, This basically is what's been going on in crypto over the last 7 days. So the bigger the bubble is, the higher it's gone up. So you can see that there's a few coins here that are actually up in the last 7 days here. So, and there's some here like BTT that's down minus 12%. Let's look at the top gainers and losers here in the last 7 days, and we'll see here again TWT, which is Trust Wallet, is actually the top gainer this week in the top 100 cryptos. It's currently up 31.6%. Caspa is right behind it at 26.7%. And then we have, everything else that's up, Maker at 14%, GMX at 12.5%, Stacks at 12.3%, and so forth. So we've had a big change here. If you looked at this probably like a week ago, you would have this did not look this way. Actually, I think on Friday, I posted up a photo of the top gainers and losers, and there was only one crypto, I think it was Caspa, that was green for the week. So definitely a big change. We're starting to see a bump here in the last few days. As far as top losers, BitTorrent is the biggest loser in the last 7 days in the top 100 cryptos, down 12.2%. ApeCoin right behind it at 10%. EOS at minus 7.6%. And it goes on. As far as any big projects here, the biggest losers are Cardano is down 5.8%. We see XRP down 5.2%, Polygon down 5.1%. A lot of that is going to have to do with, of course, Robinhood delisting Cardano and Matic, which was announced about a week ago or so. And for XRP, probably has to do with the Hinman documents that were released last week. I think people were looking for a more bullish release as far as the XRP case, but the Hinman documents didn't really make much of an impact in that XRP case, and we'll talk a little bit more about that when we jump into the news. So let's talk about what happened last week as far as on the economic calendar. So the main thing last week that we got was on Tuesday and Wednesday. Remember, we spoke about it. Tuesday, we had the CPI data, which was released. It ended up, inflation went down from 4.9% to 4%, right? So, and we ended up beating expectations. Consensus was at 4.1%, so we beat that. But if you look back here in the market, on that day, on Tuesday, there wasn't much of a reaction here. So we can see here, let me see, Tuesday was this candle right here. There really wasn't much of a reaction. So we had a pretty much a flat day, right? We did have a high of 26,420 and a low of 25,700. So it ended up opening and closing basically in the same spot though. And that's pretty much because everybody was awaiting the next day. They weren't sure which way things were going to go. And basically on Wednesday, when the Fed interest rate decision came out, they did pause as was expected. Remember, we spoke about this. We expected a pause. There was like a 90+% probability for a pause, which was bullish, right? That it's supposed to be bullish, but the issue was the way that they spoke about it, the way that they basically released it was saying that this is a pause, but they're planning to continue raising interest rate hikes. I think they said that there's possibly 2 more in the future. They raised the expectation of interest rates for their end of year expectations at 5.6%. So that would mean that there's possibly 1 or 2 more interest rate hikes. Market definitely did not like that. They also said during the press conference that they don't expect any rate cuts of possibly 1-2 years or maybe even more. And a lot of the market was anticipating rate cuts as soon as the end of this year. And then at the latest, the beginning of next year. So, of course, they said that things can change, but for now, that's what their outlook is. They're not looking to cut any rates anytime this year or in the following 1 to 2 years, and they're looking to possibly continue increasing rates. Depending if it's needed, if it's demanded, depending on the economy and how fast inflation continues to go down. So once all that came out, you can see that the market really didn't like it. Bitcoin especially dropped down 3% on the day on Wednesday, and we ended up hitting new lows. So we hit a new low here, and that low was about 24,750. All right, so that's definitely clearly below all the recent lows. That was the lowest price that we've seen since about, what was it, like March. So in about 3 months or so, that's the lowest price that we've seen. So of course there was a lot of panic in the markets, so a lot of liquidations. Crypto Twitter was insane. Everybody was calling for the death of crypto, the death of everything, right? Like we see every few weeks, every few months. But we did survive, guys. As you guys can see, the next day on Thursday, the 15th, we did get a bounce there, and prices started going back up. Why, you might ask? And we're going to cover this in the news section, but BlackRock is applying and did file for a Bitcoin spot ETF. So we'll speak more about this on the news. But if you guys don't know who BlackRock is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, asset manager funds in the world. And so when they file for something, I think they have like a 99% success rate to get their things, their ETFs approved. So that came out as very bullish news for the crypto world, because they can potentially introduce trillions of dollars into the market, which would be very, very bullish overall, bringing that much money into the markets. And that's pretty much the biggest things that happened last week. Now, this week is not going to be as crazy as last week. The biggest thing that we're going to have this week, as far as the economic calendar, we have, if we look here at the economic calendar, let's pull it up really quick. We have a bunch of people from the Fed speaking, doing testimonies. But the biggest one is going to be on Wednesday and on Thursday. Jerome Powell, the Fed chair, will be doing a testimony at 10 a.m. on Wednesday and again at 10 a.m. on Thursday. So definitely you're probably going to want to tune into that, because that will, I expect, rock the market, or at least introduce some volatility into the market, depending on how that goes. So that's the biggest thing to watch for this week, is probably going to be that. Looking over the economic calendar for the rest of the week, there's not really much else. But again, throughout the entire week, we're going to have people from the Fed board speaking every single day. But the biggest 2 days are going to be definitely when the Fed chair speaks on Wednesday and Thursday. Now that we have all of that out the way, I am going to pass the mic on to the Bitcoin Queen, who will go over some of the crazy news events that we've seen in the last week or two. What's going on? Let us know what is happening.
Here we go. All right. Good amount of stuff happening, actually. I think that some stuff got buried in the news. I don't know why, but we're going to talk about it. So first and foremost, let's talk about the Hillman papers, or documents, I guess. So pretty much the former director of corporation finance, William Hillman's, this is tied to both a string of emails that he had and a speech that he had in 2018, basically saying that Ethereum was not considered a security, and that there was a regulation gap between decentralized finance, or decentralized blockchains, let's say. Not necessarily, he didn't use the word finance, but and what we know as traditional securities. So pretty much that was used as leverage in the Ripple case. Now, I don't know how much that will actually affect the case, as Jay said before, because it's not really talking about the asset that's being sued at hand. One, two, they have different architectures, infrastructures. The way they launched was also different. Things like proof of work kind of like helped ETH leverage certain things at the time. I think there's a lot of differences, fundamental differences between the two projects. But that was used as leverage in the Ripple lawsuit, which could overall help certain things down the line that we're seeing with a lot of these lawsuits in the SEC. But
Yeah.
Jay, I'll let you comment on that a little bit since you did have something to say about that.
Yeah, so as far as what came out, I think what it wasn't like people were looking for something that's going to point for it to XRP, to give them an advantage, but there was nothing specific
Mm-mm.
to XRP or really the case overall. The way XRP is utilizing the documents is to show that there's been no clarity from the SEC. And they've been contradicting themselves over the last few years. So they pointed out that that him and when he released that, when he did not only when he did that speech, he did it with members of the Fed, or I'm sorry, members of the SEC, basically not even being on the same page. So they had comments on it saying that, hey, this is not really helping. You're gonna confuse people more than anything, and they gave them basically tips on what to change in the speech. And he kind of pretty much ignored all of those and did his speech anyways. And then after that, then the SEC chair at the time, even he did a speech talking about cryptos, and he pointed people to the website where that speech was, basically saying, look, this is how we believe and the way that we're taking in cryptocurrencies. And then now Gary is coming out with a completely different approach, while the Hyman speech is still on the SEC's website, which just everything completely contradicts itself. So so for the XRP lawyers, they're basically using that as, look, there's been absolutely zero clarity in the market. You can see in the speech that's still on the SEC's website, completely contradicts everything else, et cetera, right? So the main thing that did come out of this was would help Ethereum, because that's the cryptocurrency that was specifically mentioned during that speech, and where they were saying that Ethereum was not a security, that they did not consider it a security. So because of that, now if the SEC wants to go after Ethereum, they have to first acknowledge, that they at some point in time they did not consider it a security, and then they have to, and then I guess I think there was something about morphing during that speech in the documents, and they have to kind of acknowledge that, and they're basically taking all what do you call it, precedent away from this case, and they wouldn't be able to go back to any other cases basically to try to win the case, to try to use that as their argument to win the case. So yeah, so there's a lot going on. It is a little bit complicated, but overall, I believe it was a win for crypto and for XRP, because again, it does help overall crypto when they were speaking of, some cryptos, even though they might start out as what we would consider a security, they can morph into not being a security, which was part of that speech. So that's why if the SEC wants to go after Ethereum now, they have to then go back and acknowledge that they didn't, in the beginning, they didn't consider it a security, and now that it's morphed into a security. So if something morphs into a security, that means that something could morph from a security to not being a security, and that's basically where all this, it's just this thing that they basically they're in a checkmate, right? They can't go back, because then every project is just gonna be able to say that, look, even though they started as a security, now they're decentralized, so they're not a security, so you can't go after them, type of thing. So yeah, there's a lot going on there, but I think overall it was pretty bullish.
Yeah, I don't think they actually have a lot of leverage to go after something like Ethereum. I think that's pretty much the main reason why Gary has avoided giving a direct answer around what Ethereum is classified. Rumor around the mill, just based off the Coinbase lawsuit. I don't know if anybody has read those papers, but highly recommend for you guys to actually read the papers that are being served to these companies directly from the SEC website, because it's loaded with information. And I mean, the cases are good. They look good. Obviously, they got good lawyers. But everything is in question until there's a resolve reached. But pretty much, the idea for Ethereum to be deemed as a security is not the idea. The idea is for crypto cryptos like Ethereum and Ethereum itself to probably have a new category that it falls under, which I think is what everybody's been asking for a long time now. However, the whole like staking and like staking to earn, like all that stuff is pretty much what got a lot of these cryptocurrencies and made them securities or promise or anything that rewarded promises, any of that stuff were pretty much like flags to just like destroy that whole narrative. But we'll see what happens in the upcoming months, because who knows, we'll see. Next story. So this one was one of the ones that kind of like went under the radar, but my ears are up. So Abra, which is a crypto lending platform, as we know, like I guess Celsius, which was one of the biggest ones, went or is supposedly has been deemed insolvent since March 31st of this year. Now, they were issued an emergency cease and desist from the state of Texas Security Acts Commission, because the SEC put out that some of these projects were serving securities. Regulators have been pretty swift on moving on crypto companies that issue these securities, and Abra was one of them. Now, when they filed the cease and desist, apparently they had been back and forth with one of the co-founders, Brian, and or was it William, one of those guys. Anyways, so they had gone back and forth and basically had came to the conclusion, based off of the information that was given, that the company has been insolvent for a few months now, which another one bites the dust. Another company that was working on leverage that no longer has enough to sustain itself. Now, there's not really much word on this. There's been no word from Abra on this matter. It's pretty much just like rumor around the mill based off these emergency cease and desist. Whether or not they are in fact 100% insolvent is not clarified. Yeah, I didn't see any news clarifying this information, so I'll be on the lookout for that. But very shocked that, I mean, I'm like surprised, but I'm not surprised, right? It's just like,
Yeah.
oh my God, Abra, like they were one of the more compliant ones, but at the same time, I think Warren Buffett says this: there's three L's that are bad to men: ladies, leverage, and liquor. So that's that's it. That's basically what happened here. The leverage got him. So yeah. Anyways,
That's wild.
so Do Kwon, moving on to the characters in this space. Do Kwon is facing 4 months in jail for using a fake Chilean passport along with his co-founder. So there was a huge gathering, I think it was in Montenegro, where there was like just like all this. It was like a DAO, like Vitalik was there. Anybody who was anybody was there, and it was like a whole month-long gathering, and it was like this huge conference. And it was about DAOs, and everybody is having a good time in the space. And Do Kwon went to go join them along with his co-founder, and pretty much they got caught in Montenegro because they had fake passports. Um, I'm wondering if they had regular passports. Well, given their sensitive situation, it was definitely risky either way. But
And he,
yeah, now
and he
he's facing 4 months in jail
and
in Montenegro.
he claims he had no idea that the passport was fake.
Yeah, I don't know how. So like there's this thing in Singapore. I guess there's a fast track to you can do it in investments in different countries, like business investments, investment visas is what they're called, and basically get on a fast track to become a citizen, resident, and or just be able to get a visa to stay within the country. And supposedly, this is what he claimed he did, and it turned out to be fake. But I don't understand the math between you did a fast track in Singapore, and in Singapore you ended up with a Chilean passport. Some of the details weren't really adding up. But yeah, he's going to face 4 months in jail. However, what happens after that? Because there are a number of countries, including the US, asking for his arrest. So we'll see what happens. I pretty much believe that after those 4 months are up, they're going to either extradite him to the US and or South Korea, which is, well, the South Korean police are also looking for him. Which, I mean, that's pretty much why he didn't use his residence, a country of a nationality passport, because well, he would have got arrested immediately. But yeah, let's see what happens there. So on to our next felon, SBF, who was charged originally with 11 to 13 charges. Um, the courts have agreed to drop it to 8, which are likely to be dismissed. By the way, mostly because the rumor around the mill is that he is talking and working with the Fed, unlikely to face jail time.
That's wild.
So yeah, it's insider job, guys. That's all I gotta say. We've seen strange things like this before. There was actually, oh man, I should have done a little research on this prior to the show. I just remembered as I'm reading this aloud about this clown. But there's a company since 2017 that's been raising funds, who all of a sudden has this super really hard license to get, and was sitting on the on in front of Congress, and basically having a conversation with Congress. Except when you have a conversation with Congress, like, you're asked questions like on the spot. This person who is now coming into or they've been in the crypto space, they just have never launched anything. They've been collecting money this whole time, and supposedly just now have this extremely hard license to get that no exchange, not even Coinbase, has ever gotten. Now all of a sudden they have this license. It's been granted about a month ago, and they're sitting in front of Congress, testifying as, a compliant crypto exchange. And it seems as if their responses were scripted, which was the thing that stood out to most people. Why was this person, who clearly wasn't very knowledgeable — I guess he's the founder, the co-founder — he didn't seem very knowledgeable. Also, a young man. The idea is there's pawns being placed in these positions of power, and they're basically either doing inside jobs or creating a mockery of the space, which is pretty much what we've seen thus far. And yeah, lots of questions as to why this person had scripted answers to questions, because that's not normal. That's abnormal. That's just not how it works. And yeah, that's another thing that was circulating on Twitter last week. But yeah, we'll see what happens with SBF. This guy facing jail time, highly doubt it. I mean, it's just like it's ridiculous at this point what's happened. Yeah, it's quite sad.
Yeah, that's wild.
Anyways, let's move on from some of these clowns. So Ethereum is a hot topic today, and it's because of the validators. So no, you do not have to stake any more than 32 ETH to become an Ethereum validator. They are not moving the minimum. The minimum will continue to be 32 ETH. People were freaking out, saying that the Ethereum validators are raising the bar to entry, and therefore are centralizing the pool, and yada 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 yada. That is incorrect, guys. And there was actually a lot of articles who also published incorrect information, so it's not your fault. However, what is happening is that there is a proposal that was put through to raise the Ethereum validators to a new max of 2,048 Ethereum. So you can still use 32 Ethereum to enter in the validator, but now there is a new maximum my guess, wild theory. There's a lot of information that gets captured with these validators. Each validator is more information. If they increase the maximum, then that reduces the number of individual validators. Blah blah blah. So rest assured, you can still stake your 32 ETH. Okay, so Charles Hodgkinson. This one I found was interesting. I thought this was funny because me and my friends were talking about aliens this weekend. There's been a, I guess, for some reason, 92% of recent UFO sightings have been in the United States the past year, which is a very high increase because most of it in the past was actually in the UK, and now most of it is in the US, which I thought was interesting. So pretty much, Charles is on the search for aliens. So he took his private jet, which is I like to say is an important thing to consider here. This person took his private jet with scientists to Papua New Guinea to find extraterrestrial findings from a 2014, what is deemed to be a UFO and or meteor, whatever it was. It crashed in the Papua New Guinea area, and they went to go find it. $1.5 million was invested into this research with this team of scientists, and Charles is on it. So
That's
his latest
wild.
expedition is, in fact, finding alien remains.
That's wild.
So, yeah, it is kind of wild. It's quite funny. But when you got a lot of funny money and the IRS or not the IRS, but them too eventually, but when the SEC is coming after you, I mean, you got to get rid of it somehow. So,
That's
yeah.
crazy.
And last but not least, Blackrock ETFs, which, as Jay mentioned earlier, they filed for an ETF a few days ago. They will most likely land it. They will be the first Bitcoin ETF in the United States in history.
What a surprise.
BlackRock is pretty much the largest asset management in the US, managing $9 trillion in assets, which is a lot of assets. And ironically, their custodian will be Coinbase. They will be using Coinbase custodian in order to hold these Bitcoin ETFs. I mean, it just doesn't get any better than this.
Should we be buying some Coinbase stock?
That's a good question, and I guess that would fall under the stock in theory, but
right.
I just found it so funny that they're going with Coinbase custodian amidst of all the hullabaloo that's going on.
Mm-hmm.
I guess their custodian management is still a very valid, I guess, use. Was this an effort to manipulate the price of the Coinbase stock prior to them filing for this ETF so you can get in low? Maybe. And if it is, then I guess now is the time to get in on coin, because apparently if this Blackrock ETF goes through, I mean, like Jay mentioned earlier, that's trillions of dollars that could be potentially flooded into the market, which is, I mean, that's a great thing to have. So I'm not knocking it. It is also rumored around the mill as of right now that Fidelity is in fact launching preparing to submit their ETF proposal again as well. So,
that's wild. And
I don't usually invest in stocks, but I would look into it.
And it's wild because BlackRock's ETF success rate with the SEC is 575 to 1. And the last time that they were unsuccessful was over 10 years ago, or it was 10 years ago, or almost 10 years ago. So that's pretty wild. And then
pretty good.
And what's wilder is that the SEC would have to approve it, knowing that Coinbase is the custodian for the ETF. So I don't know. This is, I don't even know what to think of this.
It's quite funny. When I was just like, oh, okay. When I saw the Coinbase custodian part, I'm like, okay, I see what's going on here. That's most of the news for this week, guys. Let's go into the Bitcoin price analysis, Jay. Let's see how this news is affecting our markets.
Yeah, definitely. And we saw the effect of in the markets when we're potentially seeing it right now. But we saw the effect in the market last week as soon as this was announced. Once it was announced, we basically had $1,000 move to the upside in Bitcoin. Once that the news got around, so we see here that we hit last week on Thursday, we hit a low of 24,744 and a high of 25,743. So literally $1,000 move from the bottom to the top once that news kind of broke out. And then the next day we went to a high of 26,505. And then now, currently, as we speak, we're at 26,874. So a $2,000 move since this was announced on Thursday of last week. I think people are starting to get it, and you know, the market is expecting that ETF to get approved, and when it does get approved, you know, we could, I think we can potentially see new highs for 2023. That's gonna be kind of my prediction there. Not saying I'm not saying we're hitting new all-time highs, guys. I'm saying potentially it could lead to a new high for this year. Now, you know, it's really not that far off. We're talking about from where we currently are, we're at 26, let's say 27. That's a $4,000 move. We just saw a $2,000 move in the last, you know, less than a week. So I think, you know, for the price to move $4,000, if it gets approved, that's not much in Bitcoin, right? That's really not a big move. If we look at what that move will look like percentage wise from, let's say, where we are right now, guys, that's less than a 20% move. Like, Bitcoin does that in its sleep, right? So so definitely I think that's something that could be possible, where we can see something like that, where we set a new high for 2023, and that might be the peak of 2023 for the price of Bitcoin. That could set up a high, but I don't know, you know, I'm just kind of speculating here. Who knows, right? This thing could go either way. Maybe they become the second ETF that gets declined in the last decade, or just overall for BlackRock. So you know, with crypto, one thing in crypto is to always expect the unexpected. So we'll just see kind of what happens with that. But let's go into the analysis here for this week. So let's start off on the weekly chart. Well, actually, let's go all the way back to the monthly. Let's see what the monthly is looking like so far. As you guys can see here, we've been after a amazing start to the year in January. You know, we moved up almost 40% move on January. February, we're pretty much in the flat, and then in March we had another 23% move up, and in April we had a 2.5% move up. Then of course came May, and you know, as the saying goes, sell in May and go away. Well, so far it's proving to be true, because in May we saw about a 7% loss, and in this month so far we're down only 1%. It seems like a really bad month because of everything that's happened in the last couple weeks, but we're only down 1% this month. Okay, we still have about we have about 2 weeks to go, a little bit under 2 weeks. So, you know, let's see what happens. You know, let's see what happens, right? So let's go to the weekly here and kind of see where we are on the weekly. Now, one thing to note here, the first thing to note is check out this resistance, right? That's pretty much been holding us back since we hit that high back in April, and we've pretty much been getting rejected by that after that. So one thing that we definitely need is a close on top and beyond this resistance line here, which we have not had. Right now we are above it, but we need to close this candle above it. So that means that on Sunday we need to make sure that we're still above this, right? The other thing is this blue line right here. That is a 200-week moving average. If we go back, and we spoke about this before, we won't be able to see it on this chart, but if we go, let's see, probably all-time history, yeah, this should be able to show us. If we go back, you can see that before this year, we had never closed, well, we had closed here, but we had, other than that, we had never really spent much time below this 200-week moving average until this year. This year, for the first time in the bear market, we spent, you know, a whole lot of time under that moving average. We tried to break above it, and then we fell right back below it, and then now we broke above it again, only to once again close below it. As you guys can see, last week was the second week in a row where we closed below this line. As of right now, we're back above it. But remember, we're talking about closing. So the line is pretty much around 26,600-ish, is looking where it's at right now. So we need to close above that number, basically, to potentially get a bounce here and to continue to the upside. And we can see, if we look back in history, we see that we bounced off that line so many times. We can see it right here. We can see it here. So that was during the last bear market. The bear market before that, we can see that we bounced twice on it as well. And you can just see that that's been a really, really big support. Not only a support during the bear market, but it's basically acted as a reversal when jumping into the next bull market. So we definitely want to see that price close above that 200-week moving average and hold there, because if not, we could potentially get further downside. Okay, and we definitely don't want further downside. So also on the weekly here, you can see that we still have this higher high, higher low setup. It's still intact, guys. So although we cleared and set up new lows here, we still have higher highs, higher low. If we just kind of look at, you know, from the bottom here, we set up higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low. So right now we're still good, right? Right now we're still good. We're pretty much retesting that previous higher high. So as long as we keep this pattern intact, it's still looking good for the long term here. This still could be that reversal that leads us into that next bull market. So far, you know, two good things there, right? Another thing to note, of course, we have that head and shoulders pattern. That's a big reversal pattern, right? We have the left shoulder, we have the head, we have the right shoulder, and then we have the neckline here, which we got this clear breakout there. So what this could be, what's happening right now, could be a retest of this neckline, right? And that could be what we saw here, because that's around that $24,000 range. So potentially that's something that we saw here. And if we just kind of look up, you know, we just go here and put head and shoulders pattern, right? And we go to images. I'm sure we're gonna see some, well, this is an inverse. So inverse head and shoulders pattern. You can see that a lot of the times after the breakout here, there's always a retest before a continuation to the upside, right? Let me see if there's another one. Here's another one. There's a neckline, breakout, retest, continuation. And you can pretty much see this in most of these patterns. A breakout, a retest, continuation. Let's see which other one here. We have, this one's not loading correctly, but we can see that we had a breakout, retest, continuation, another retest, and then continuation again, and on and on and on, right? You'll see this over and over and over in a lot of these photos, because that's a very, very, very common thing for price action there. So that's pretty much what we're seeing right now, right? We have the inverse head and shoulders, which is a very, very popular and very common reversal pattern. Then we have the breakout, and then we have the retest here. So what does this lead us to? What is the target here? And I do think I drew this before. Yep, here we go. So you can see here that our target from this pattern is basically right up here. That sits around $36,000. So, and that's very close to this next Fibonacci level here, which is at $37,000. So that's going to be a big area right there for us to target and potentially hit in the future. Remember, this is on a bigger time frame. This is a weekly time frame. So, this develops over time. You can see that for this pattern to develop, it took what? From June of last year, and now we're in June of 2023. So in a year, it's what it's taken for that pattern to develop and then the breakout to happen, and now a retest, right? So so these patterns take time. So even though the target up here is at 36,000, doesn't mean it happens overnight. Doesn't mean it's going to happen in a couple weeks or even in a month, right? It's going to take time to develop. We could be talking about this maybe end of year reaching that $36,000 target there. So that's another thing that we've been watching. Again, that's bullish overall. So and looking through this, we can see confluence, right? We can see the overall picture looking pretty bullish, right? Looking like a reversal and basically showing us that we've pretty much printed a bottom. We've probably most likely hit the bottom for this bear market. Now, remember, we deal in probabilities, not absolutes. So there's always a chance that, we might not have, right? But from everything that I'm looking at, from my experience, it tells me and it points to us being, basically at that point where we've already hit that bottom. We have the big reversal here, and now it's just a matter of time before we continue to the upside there. So those are the main things that I'm looking at. Now, if we dive in deeper to the daily time frame here, the main things that I'm looking for here are going to be this green box. Remember, that was a big support area and is now going to be acting as a resistance area. So you can see we've already been rejected there, and we're at it right now. We've been rejected already in the last few days. Let's see if we can kind of break back into that range there. I think that we have to probably get above that $27,000. I would like to see it maybe around 27,400 range and above. I think is a good level to maybe break through and close above, to then once again convert this this resistance back into a support level. Now remember, if we do go down lower, we do have the support here, which we just recently tapped last week, and that's in that $24,000 range. So we just tapped that support level last week, and you can see if we go back, we have a lot of open interest here where it was once a resistance level, right? We got rejected from it multiple times here. We got rejected from it again here, and then we had a little bit of trouble here before it finally breaking above it. Now we've once again tapped that level, and we bounced back up. So that is a good sign overall. Now, we still do have a lot of work to do here. We have a lot of resistance. We have this dynamic resistance here that's been holding us back since we set the high for the year. We have the support flipped into resistance as well. We have the 200-week moving average in that range as well. So there's a lot of things going on in this range that we're going to have to try to break above, right? And if we pull up the volume shelves here, you can see in the volume shelves that there's a lot of open interest in this range. So that means that it's harder to move above or fall below it, right? Because there's a lot of buying and selling in this range. So that's gonna act as a resistance as well. So that's another thing to keep an eye on. Because if we go below it, you can see how easily we moved down here and then moved right back up, right? And that's because, look, there's not a lot going on there. There's not a lot of open interest. So it's a lot easier to move the price beyond these gaps, right? Now, there is a gap. Once we get above $28,000, you can see that the volume shelves start kind of falling off. And that does make it easier for us to break back into that $30,000 range. So there's going to be a big level. The biggest level here on this volume shelf is going to be $28,000. So breaking above that and holding above that is going to definitely be monumental if we want to see a continuation back into this year's highs. So what am I doing this week? What type of trades am I looking for, right? How am I going to play it? So it right now we're still kind of like right now we're like in this resistance range, right? So we don't really want to be looking for a long position at the current prices. If I was looking to open a position right now, you know, if you put a gun to my head and you said open a position right now, long or short, I'd probably be shorting here with a stop. Probably I give myself a little bit of room, maybe to these highs right here, these recent highs. That seems to be like around that 27,400 range. So I'd probably put my stop, you know, somewhat above that. And if, you know, price broke above that, then I'd close out the trade, because then we might be going up to test that $28,000 range. And then I might be looking to short at that range as well. So there's not a lot of long opportunity, I don't think, right now at this current price. Now, if we do drop back down towards that $26,000 range, you know, there is some opportunity there for a long, but again, that's kind of, if we look at the price here, that's kind of the middle of nowhere, right? It has acted as somewhat of a support, but you know, if we go back, that you're kind of the middle of nowhere there, where things could go in either direction. So again, not really a high probability play there. So right now, I'm probably looking either to short these levels here. Anywhere between now and 27,400 would be, you know, possible opportunities to short. And again, 28,000, another possible opportunity to short. So maybe the best play this week, if you're looking to open trades, what I would recommend and what I'm probably doing, I might not open trades this week, especially with Wednesday and Thursday, knowing that Jerome Powell's going to be speaking. But you know, every time he speaks, price goes down. So that might actually play into the narrative where we're at a resistance right now. There's a lot of resistance between here, and $28,000. And price could drop lower on Wednesday, Thursday when Jerome Powell speaks. So, you know, if you're looking to open trades, that's what I would probably be looking at. You know, I'd be trying to find something within there. You can even set something up where maybe you open up a beginning trade here. And then kind of, you know, ladder your way in. So all the way up to like 28,000. So again, you wouldn't need this would be a lot riskier, because your stop would probably have to be above 28,500. You know, so if you want to start at 27,000, then you kind of another entry at 27,500, and then another entry at 28,000. You know, it is kind of a risk, and then you still have a $500. You know, you're gonna need another $500 here for your stop loss. So that is a big range. Maybe for swing trades, you can try something like that. If you're looking for scalps or day trades, I wouldn't set something up like that. But for a swing trade, that's probably the best setup, I would say. For scalps, again, you're trying to play this level here, this resistance here. And trying to catch a quick move to the downside. And when I say a quick move, I don't mean a move to 24,000 or back to 25. I mean very small moves, right? We're looking at moves probably like in the $200 range. So if you're scalping, you're looking to scalp $100 to $200 ranges, and make a quick profit and then get out. So that's pretty much the only setups I would be looking at so far right now. Remember, this could all change depending what happens as the week goes on. As price changes, as we get new prices, new highs, new lows, then you know the way I reevaluate at that point, and make a new game plan from there, basically. But you know, as long as you have a game plan, just make sure that you always know exactly where you're going to be exiting, whether you're right or wrong. That's going to be the main thing. And just by doing that alone, by having a game plan, by having, you know, knowing exactly where you're getting out, and just opening up a trade versus just opening up a trade and not knowing when you're going to get out, and like having a mental place where you're going to get out, but then changing it because your emotions might run high. You know, emotions will mess you up as a trader. You know, whether it's greed or anger or because you're losing trades, whatever it is, it'll make you a bad trader. You're gonna lose more and more trades. So that's what I would recommend. You can open it in either direction, but just make sure you have a plan, right? Make sure you look for confluence and have a plan, know where you're gonna get out, regardless whether you're winning a trade or losing a trade. Always have an exit plan. So that's the biggest takeaway, I think, from this. If you're deciding to play the charts this week. So that's pretty much what we're gonna be looking at. And I think that's all I have for you as far as the analysis here on the week. Remember, I only look at Bitcoin because everything else is gonna follow whatever Bitcoin is doing. So if Bitcoin moves up, Ethereum is probably also going to move up. Altcoins will probably also move up. Bitcoin moves down, then everything probably just gonna follow as well. So pretty much the main thing. Another thing that I did really quickly want to look at, Bitcoin dominance. I know a lot of people have been asking me about it. It did break through its previous resistance here, and we've set new highs here. If we go over to the weekly, you can see that it had been rejected at this exact level many times before, and we just broke above it and set up new highs here for the Bitcoin dominance. You can see that we're hitting 50% dominance right now. So what does that mean for the overall market? Well, it means that more money is flowing into Bitcoin. So any new money coming into crypto right now is flowing into Bitcoin versus into altcoins. So that's going to set Bitcoin up to outperform in the short term, right? But if that reverses, which it reverses all the time, as you can see in other charts here, then that means altcoins are going to be outperforming Bitcoin. So just something else to keep in mind, you know, if Bitcoin dominance continues to go up, then there is a possibility that altcoins are underperforming Bitcoin. So just something else to keep in mind overall. As you trade, you know, I don't know if you guys are trading altcoins or you're trading Bitcoin, Ethereum, whatever it is, but just make sure to keep that in mind. So, what do you think, Bitcoin Queen? what do you think is what's gonna happen this week? Have any thoughts?
Oh no, not really. I mean, there was something around there was we haven't had any interest rate hikes recently. That's been taken a pause. There's a rumor around the mill saying that they might start over and start increasing those rates again if inflation doesn't figure itself out, which I thought was insane, because why would inflation go down if you're just going to heighten these interest rates? And that might have something to do with it eventually, but I don't think that's in the upcoming week. For right now, I think we've basically have hit pretty close to rock bottom if we haven't already. I mean, this is definitely not the lowest Bitcoin's been in the past 6 months. It's been lower.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it looks like we're chugging along. So
yeah, 100%.
Let's see what happens.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and dive into some Q&A. So if you guys have any questions about anything that we've spoken about today, or anything you know, that you want our thoughts on, drop it in the comments right now, and we'll answer a few questions here, and we'll go from there. So I did ask as well on Instagram, so I'm gonna pull up Instagram really quickly to see if we got anything, any questions that came in through Instagram. If not, we'll just answer whatever we get here in the comment section, and then and wrap things up from there. So let me take a look here. Someone said big gap, or Bitcoin to gap to 20,000, I think is what they're saying. I'm not sure, they wrote it kind of weird. It says bit to gap 20,000. So will Bitcoin drop down to 20,000? Now, I mean, like I said, we deal in probabilities, right? Nothing in trading is ever absolute. So is there an argument or a narrative or a scenario where Bitcoin could drop down to 20,000? Yeah, for sure. So there's, you know, there could definitely be multiple things for that argument. One being that we do have one of the CME gaps at $20,000. So that's one of the arguments that people are talking about. But again, remember, I told you not all gaps get filled. Even though a majority of gaps do get filled, all of them do not. So just because there's a gap there does not mean that 100% Bitcoin has to drop down there to fill that gap. And then the other thing is there's liquidity that was left behind in that range, right? So because we have this big, huge green candle, that means that there were a lot of orders that probably weren't ever filled here. So a lot of times what price action likes to do is basically retrace this whole candle here that price never came back to, right? So those are two arguments that can point to Bitcoin potentially dropping back to $20,000. And again, $20,000 has always been a big magnet because during the previous bull run, before the last bull run, so the 2018 bull run or 2017 bull run, we topped out at 20,000. So that's always been a big number for Bitcoin in the last few years. So is there a scenario where we can drop back down? Yeah, of course. But we're not just gonna drop down for no reason, right? There has to be a reason, for prices to want to drop down basically $7,000. So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on it. I don't know if we will get that again. I wouldn't, I wouldn't just wait on the sidelines with all my money in cash to see if that's gonna happen or not, because there's still a lot of people at like $10, $11, $12,000 that were waiting on that to happen before the previous bull run, and it never happened. So it just depends what that means to you and why do you want the price to drop down to $20,000? Like, is it because you're completely out of crypto right now and you're waiting for $20,000? If it even hits 20,000, are you even gonna get in at that point? Because it's hit $20,000 multiple times. So if those people did not get in at $20,000 when it was down there, why would they get in now, right? So usually those same people saying that Bitcoin's gonna drop back down to $20,000, this and that, that they're sitting on the sidelines or whatever it is. When price does drop down to those numbers, those people probably don't enter because they think at that point they're gonna say, well, it's gonna drop down to $15,000, right? Or we're gonna set up a new low at $13,000 or whatever number they decide on that day, right? Whatever fits their narrative that day, and they end up never entering Bitcoin. So yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts on that. Let me see. Do you have anything else? Let me take a look here at the comments. Rodrigo says, do you have an update status on the Binance and other case? Do you have any updates on that, Queen?
Oh, so the only thing that came to mind, and I think you might have deleted it, I kind of like edited it, but so Binance and the SEC, they stroke a deal in terms of Binance US customer assets. So last week, the SEC was trying to freeze, I guess, Binance from accessing customer assets and from people from withdrawing from Binance's platform, which I think is absolutely insane. If you're trying to protect consumers, you should let them get their money off the platform immediately. But instead, they were looking to get all the assets frozen. So basically, the Binance came to an agreement with the SEC, and the courts approved it, letting Binance freeze U.S. customer assets only, not all of Binance's assets. And employees have access to the assets if need be. So if customers reach out to Binance and have, they file whatever it is that they need to file, they might have access to get their assets back outside of the freeze. So that is the only thing I've seen that is mentionable from the lawsuit. thus far, there's really not much out of either lawsuit at the moment. It's still very, very young, and it's pending a date in court. So we'll have to wait and see.
All right, there you go, Rodrigo. Hopefully that answered your question there. Yeah, that's pretty much the same thing that I've seen so far on those cases. Exactly what she said. So we're just like you were kind of. Everybody's pretty much waiting right now, seeing what ends up happening there with both of those cases. I know. Brian Armstrong, the CEO of Coinbase, has been basically, he went on a bunch of different news stations. I think he did interviews, basically talking about all of that as well. So I know he's been out, trying to talk as much as possible as well on that, but haven't seen anything else from the SEC or the famous Gary Gensler as of since they did that. Let me see anything else. I'm gonna check any other questions. I don't think I see nothing else on Instagram. Nothing in the comments. So I mean, we are over the hour, so we're gonna go ahead and wrap things up. Thank you guys for everybody that has tuned in and that was here. Thank you for those that asked the questions in the chat and on Instagram. We are here live every Monday, usually 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Today we're a little bit behind, but we were able to get it up and going either way. Thank you to the Bitcoin Queen, as always, for coming on here with me and going over the news. She does a incredible job with that, as always. And that's pretty much it, guys. We will be live again next week. Again, I still want to turn this into a podcast. I just got to figure out the easiest way to be able to do it and probably start uploading it to all the podcast websites. I don't know, Bitcoin Queen, if you have any experience with that. But I think that's the next plan.
For like multi podcast upload Anchor. Anchor is what a lot of people use. It like uploads it to like everywhere else. So
okay.
Just distribute. And there's a lot of AI stuff these days where it'll take videos and turn it into text and then vice versa. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff out there.
Yeah, so I think that's the next step for this to just put it up on all platforms as well, so that it's available for everyone to listen to, regardless of where they are. I know not everybody has the time to sit down for an hour watching a YouTube live stream, so I think we'll be able to reach a lot more people if we just turn it into an audio podcast where they can listen to it as they're in the car, or while you're at work, or while you're running, you're in the gym, whatever the case may be. Rodrigo asked if you have your own YouTube channel.
I do. I don't use it very much. Honestly, Jay is like the only person I stream with these days. I used to be an influencer, but I've pretty much have gone incognito and have been working on the back ends of the crypto world instead of reporting on the front ends. I like reporting stuff, but also getting my hands dirty and running events. I mostly run events. That's like most of what I do. So anytime I have a conference or a large event coming up, I pretty much just shill it on here. And so that's the best place to catch me.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's actually where I met her at one of her events that she was working on. So yeah, definitely. Well, give them your Twitter. I think that's probably where you're the most active, right?
Kind of. Yeah, I mean, you could definitely reach out to me, no problem. I'll definitely answer back. My Twitter is at the BTC Queen. That is what I go by, the Bitcoin Queen, the BTC Queen. And if you got questions, reach out to me. Occasionally I tweet on there. Sometimes I like clear up FUD, stuff of that nature. So I'm around.
Awesome. And yeah, Rodrigo, it's very, very rainy here. It's actually, there's a storm here right now. So it's thundering, it's lightning. I can't see out the window right now. Like, it's just all cloudy. So yeah, it's definitely been a storm here today. But hopefully it wasn't too loud. I think it was quite relaxing. Maybe from now on we'll put storm sounds, rain sounds in the background while we do the live streams. Because I feel pretty relaxed today. I'm not gonna lie. All right.
Good.
All right, guys. Well, thank you again so much for tuning in, guys. We will see you guys on the next one. As always, peace and love.